Now, the super chat earlier, and a big question is in 1964, Malcolm X meets Martin Luther King, and
Yeah.
people always want to know like the future of their relationship and the status of Black America. But before you answer that question, can you elaborate on the relationships and the differences and the pros and cons of Malcolm X stance and Martin Luther King stance?
I think we need to first understand that I go back to the quote on segregation
Mm-hmm.
and what they were working on. They were working on two different tracks. And Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Group were working on overturning white supremacy through changing the laws, integration, bus boycotts. That before changing these laws, particularly the most powerful law being the Voters' Rights Act, um, these you don't have recourse when your rights are taken away from, or when people do things against you. You don't have recourse, but if you change the laws, then you have a system that you say these laws is precedent. We're going to go through the court system. We're going to use a legal system. We have rights that can be represented now. And so I think it's really important to understand that's what the civil rights groups are doing, and that's important.
Right.
And what Malcolm was doing was really, he was focusing on our what we do amongst ourselves and for ourselves.
Right.
And there are things that we had. I mean, if you think about some of those speeches where he's talking about who taught you to hate yourself, who taught you to hate the shape of your nose, the color of your hair, the texture of your hair, all of that. Who he focused on us doing that. Now, the other thing is that they were attacking the white supremacy of this country from two different directions. And so it was not so much they would necessarily work together per se, but they were working from different directions to attack this thing. And that's what they were doing. But the thing is that they were coming together on different philosophies. For example, when Malcolm comes up with the idea of changing the fight, not even changing, he just says, let's make this fight for civil rights also human rights. Bring a charge against the United States government for violating our human rights. Malcolm comes up with that, and he comes up with that at a secret meeting with other civil rights leaders. Martin Luther King wasn't there, but his lawyer was, and said that was the most brilliant idea that came out of that meeting. And that's what Malcolm was focusing on when he was going abroad, was getting people to hear our story about how our rights have been violated, seeing how it had been translated outside of this country, and getting support to bring this charge against the United States through the United Nations. So they were fighting. So they would work together. And I think, and they knew that they were closer than they thought, but they were doing it from different tracks. And he would have had more support, I believe, also from the civil rights movement, had that been allowed to go forward. But we don't see that happening, or what would have happened, because Malcolm was killed in 1965. But right. It's important to know that they were, and I also want to make it clear, we don't have to choose one or the other.
Absolutely right.
I think that it's important to understand their roles are important to this fight, this huge fight that we're still in. And it's important to understand what they did, and that both of their roles were important. You don't have to agree with everything, but you do have to understand what they were able to accomplish.